This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Anything discussed during this podcast does not, and is not intended to, constitute legal advice. Instead, all content is for general entertainment purposes only. Listeners should contact their attorney to obtain advice with respect to any particular legal matter. Listening to, contacting us, or any of the links or resources contained within this podcast and/or website does not create an attorney-client relationship. The views expressed during this podcast are those of the individual lawyers in their individual personal capacities only.
All the legal ladies, all the legal ladies, all the legal ladies, all the legal ladies.
Welcome to All the Legal Ladies. Unwind with us as we navigate the fascinating world of legal tales, precedents, and the occasional objection-worthy joke. So, how's summer starting out for everybody?
Looking forward to vacation. That's how summer's going. Busy.
Whereas I kind of went straight into vacation with family in town. And so now it's like, what time do I have to get up in the morning? There's just a lack of structure right now that I'm having a hard time adjusting to.
I am so not a summer person. I am stripping my grandmother's dresser to try and make it into something new. So I was outside sanding it yesterday, and I was exhausted when I went back inside because the heat is just gnarly. But yeah, the kids enjoy it.
Yeah. My kids are in grandpa camp this week. Graciously offered to cover a week that we didn't have childcare planned. He has been wearing them out. Like they have been to the pool. They have been to the beach. Like I think they've been on a bike ride already this morning. So nice.
Yeah. Charles didn't have much of a summer break. He went straight to Maryland Boys State. So I don't know how he's doing. In pictures, he appears to be smiling, but there are no electronics allowed. So no cell phone, no computers, no laptop. They are just wake up at probably like 5:30 and lights out at 10:30.
Wow.
Are they just like pen and papering it this week?
So they have guest lecturers. So they had the comptroller for the state of Maryland, someone from the city council, someone from the legislature. And then, so the first day or two was a dictatorship, quote unquote. They just had to follow the rules. And then they formed their own government for the rest of the week. So they are divided into cities, and then the cities elect a governor. So I think that's what they're doing today. But I do get glimpses because thankfully, you know, the people there, the mentors and everyone there, they post pictures and videos. So Charles, I know, is in heaven because he gets to do the color guard in the morning. So I see him with his rifle, and so I was like, okay. There we go. I know he's happy there, but I saw him with his head down in one of the lectures. Just was like, okay, is he even paying attention? He better be paying attention because he could potentially earn college credit, and I don't want to have to waste my money. So he better pass. But that's my rant.
I'm just thinking these kids are probably used to making like slide decks for school, right? Like that's how they present. And are they just writing their ideas down?
Yes.
Have no whiteboard it.
Yes. Nice. You see some with the books in their back of their pants.
It's like the olden days.
Yes. And they only had to bring pens. They were only allowed to bring pens. So they couldn't even bring like books or anything unless for religious purposes. So it's strictly, you're in this cocoon.
I like it.
Interesting.
I mean, that's kind of like Girl Scout camp. You know, they're not allowed any electronics or anything like that. And
I don't think they're forming their own government.
No, they're not. Well, who knows? It could be Lord of the Flies. But
yeah, he's in Dar City. And then the other boy we dropped off is in Legion City. So it's like, oh.
Okay.
All righty.
Can only imagine what they might be coming up with.
I know. They had their own court system too. Each city has their own court system. So one of the cities had a trial last night.
Okay. Nice. Well, that segues nicely into our topic for today, judicial ethics. I wonder if they've considered that. Because it's been in the news a lot lately with our Supreme Court justices. Can't say getting in trouble, but the public perception might be souring on them.
It's amazing that, you know, the Supreme every judicial branch has a code of ethics, except for the Supreme Court until recently. They finally promulgated their own code of ethics in December of 2023. But I was like, why do you wait that long? It's like they can just do anything and get away with it. And well, not to put judgment on it, but apparently that's what they're doing because, judges are supposed to have the appearance of impartiality and just fairness and be held apart from the common man or woman. But the way that some have been behaving in the Supreme Court, it doesn't give the appearance of impartiality.
No. Yeah, it is interesting because the Code of Conduct for United States Judges was adopted in 1973 and intentionally excluded the Supreme Court. So it's like they intentionally didn't want to have it be part of what they were, which is why we have so many problems now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like self-governance works until a point, right? Like it works as long as the people who are self-governing believe in it and believe in a higher standard and really, buy into the system. If you don't buy into the system, you don't think you're a problem. You're not worried about the appearance of anything. Well, I know I'm not being a problem, so I don't care if it looks bad.
Yeah.
Well, once that falls apart, then self-governance falls apart.
Yep. And that's what's happened. I mean, we have Supreme Court justices who are getting thousands, if not millions of dollars in gifts and travel and
vacationing with people who could potentially come before the Supreme Court or,
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Well, and the whole, let's be fair, it's the wives, not the husbands of the Supreme Court justices that are causing issues. And to me, that's still crazy, too, because, we all have husbands who are involved with government work. And so, the idea that we would do something to throw any aspersions on our husbands or to potentially impact their clearance is just not even something that would cross our minds. And yet here are some examples of people who are giving the finger to the American public.
Mm-hmm. But it's like Alycia said, what can they do to me? Mm-hmm. What can they do? So I guess now with the U.S. Supreme Court adopting the Code of Ethics, it specifies that justices should uphold the integrity and independence of the judiciary, avoid impropriety and the appearance of impropriety, perform their duties fairly, impartially, and diligently, engage in extrajudicial activities that are consistent with the obligations of the judicial office, and refrain from political activity. So it's about time they came aboard.
But is Clarence Thomas going to say, well, I'm not engaging in political activity?
Of course.
It's my wife who's engaging in political activity. How do I infringe on her right to engage in political speech? But
don't go on vacation.
Well, and she's just Ginny Thomas's politics have been very forefront for a long time, considering she's married to a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
As a private citizen, I can't even remember what all those groups were called back in 2016 or 2014, the buses across the country founded by billionaires. But she was there for all of that. She's been there in Republican politics all along, and that's fine. But not if you're in the Supreme Court. You're supposed to be apart from politics.
Right. You're supposed to be nonpartisan. So because no matter who comes before the court, Republican, Democratic, unaffiliated, independent, whatever, libertarian, you should be able to preside over any case without people forming ideas that, you're leaning this way because of your politics. That's why it's important for judges to be impartial. It's important for judges to just stay above the political arena, the fray, and not delve into it, not say, I'm just these are my friends and I'm vacationing with them, or this is not really important. I'm just, I don't know,
to give a damn, to give a damn about what it is and what it looks like. And, you know, we learn in law school about Marbury versus Madison, and that Madison had like all of these options that he could have decided. And he chose the one that would keep the Supreme Court going, basically. Like it could have died way back when because he made a wrong decision, but he chose to keep it to a place that would allow it to continue to function as an independent oversight and become what it has, that you've seen in other Supreme Court justices, especially Chief Justices like Chief Justice Rehnquist and Berger and Warren before that. Roberts has been sort of, kind of. But I'll quote my favorite professor, Jim Todd, if you hear this, I hope so, that, you know, we happened to get one of those judges on a clearance. His nickname was Clarence Thomas in class, because he doesn't seem to hold the same regard.
And it's not just about him associating with one political party over the other. It's just the appearance of it, the ethics of it. Like, you are a justice. We hold our state judges, our federal judges, to a higher standard. And the Supreme Court, it should be the highest standard. They are the ones who decide the law of the land, basically. So you should be held to a higher standard and not show bias, you know, impropriety, even on the outskirts of it or touching it. You just should say, look, I understand my wife is an independent woman, but I am not going to partake on plane rides, vacations, or accepting money or gifts from people who appear before me. And I would hope that you would talk to your spouse and say, you know, I understand you are involved in this, but still, I don't want anyone to come before the court and say, oh,
I know how he's going to decide.
Exactly. I am not being fair. I am not upholding the law. So
I guess, and that's the part that bothers me. And it feels fine to be coming at it from the other side because it's like, you know, telling women what to do. But I don't know. To me, like, when you're going to higher offices like that, that's a decision you make as a family. That's a decision that affects your whole family and how you're going to operate for the rest of your lives. You know, you can't behave the same way once you're a judge, when someone in your family is a judge. So it's like, I feel like when you take an office like that, you have the understanding that you're going to step back from political life, like the whole family.
I mean, your kids are something different when they're out of the home and their own adults and stuff like that. I mean, we see that sort of nowadays, but you know, but yeah, I agree with you. Just because it does affect your life. I mean, we've talked about it just from the little standpoint of wanting to maybe be judge or not be judge, as we've decided here in St. Mary's County, because it would affect how we live our lives. It would change a lot of what we can do or not do.
It's a big decision, and it is a family decision. And you should sit down and talk with your spouse and your children about what this potentially means and how there would be certain restrictions and things of that nature. Because, yes, before a judge, you hope to be politically active and voice your opinions on certain issues that affect your community. I know I've done that, but I know that if I ever become a judge, I wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah. And I would encourage my family, my spouse, not to do that either, because what you do affects me. What I do affects you. And he understands that. And he wouldn't want to put me in a position to discredit me as a judge. And we know that, you know, Maryland has a code of ethics, and judges have been reprimanded, maybe not for political, you know, ties, but judges have, even in our Southern Maryland County, judges have been reprimanded.
Yeah, they've been found guilty of civil rights violations and other incidents and removed from office. A Prince George's County judge just got removed last month from by the Supreme Court of Maryland. I just checked. I don't think I can find the full opinion yet. So I'm curious to read that.
Yeah.
It's probably not out yet. But it was like the actions were so bad that they just were like, you have to be removed immediately. And so we hold, like you said, state judges to this high.
Well, even as attorneys, like,
Yeah.
we're held to the standard. Like, we can't take a case not just if there's actual conflict, but if there's the appearance of a conflict. I mean, how many conversations have we had internally in our office about, do we really think this is a conflict, and how strong is the appearance of a conflict, and whether or not we can be involved? And it's just crazy to me that our Supreme Court justices do not hold themselves to the same standard as our small town law office, as I was joking the other day, just a few steps above trading chickens.
But the cynic in me also says, but how much have we held ourselves to a standard that we look at other attorneys in the area that aren't doing the same thing, whether it's conflict or approach with the court or, and so just things that people will do that we wouldn't even consider because our ethics say otherwise.
But when they get caught, they get in trouble. The Supreme Court
doesn't.
Like, we've been discussing the Clarence Thomas issue for months and nothing has happened. It has, I guess this new Supreme Court Code of Ethics is in response to that, but it's been a long time coming. And
I can only hope that Chief Justice Roberts behind the scenes is at least like, come on, man. Could you help a brother out? I don't know. Just the fact that he continues to do it and be unapologetic is just.
And there's no end in sight. Again, Maryland has mandatory retirement at age 70. Granted, retired judges continue to sit for a long time afterwards. And I'm not saying mandatory retirement at 70 is right. What do they call it? Statutory senility or something? Was that the joke that they make?
That was the joke.
But I don't know if that's the right call, but just the idea that, justice can sit there and do this, maybe until they're 95 years old.
Yeah. But it's, the pros and cons, at 70, are you now, we see it a lot with some of the older judges that haven't adapted to MDEC, the electronic filing systems. Do they even understand some of the things that are happening with the younger generations? And so again, continuing legal education is a wonderful thing, and Maryland might as well implement it. That is my personal opinion.
Yes. Just because you're a judge, you don't know everything when you're appointed, the day you're appointed. That's why, like you said, CLE's continuing legal education is important. Training is important. Making sure that you are up on the latest technology that affects the court system is important. And again, that goes to holding yourself to a higher standard and making sure that you are the best justice that you can be, and that you are there to serve the people and lay down the law, so to speak.
I do think we're lucky down here because I think our judges do engage in that kind of training.
Yes.
You hear them bringing back things that they've learned at the various trainings. Again, Maryland's doing a good job. So U.S. Supreme Court, maybe get on that. Take a few notes from Maryland, your neighbor.
I mean, to toot our state, we have a statewide public defender system that is amazing that other states have copied. We have judicial change of name or whatever, but the rest of it has gone really well with the Code of Ethics and their training and how they uphold it. And so, are there things that could still be tweaked? The one in Prince George's County, apparently she won because it was a slate of offices. So should they tweak elections to be seat specific as opposed to
talk about someone who thought they didn't have anything to learn?
Yeah. So can things always be improved on? 100%.
Yes.
100%. But there are
100% more things to improve in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yes.
Without even getting into Alito's household and all of their various flags.
There's a part of me that misses Scalia. Which is really different to say. As
simpler times, right?
But to be fair, Scalia was great from a defense attorney's perspective because the idea, I think, behind a lot of his things were, if it could happen to me, then this is how I want it to happen, which is a great, like, perspective.
Right.
Right? So, like, I don't agree with anything else he wrote except for that. But
It's funny to me that he and Ginsburg were so personally close.
Yes.
You talk about mandatory like retirement. I'm like, meanwhile, I was like lighting candles for her until the end. Some meme is like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg needs it. She can have my kidney. She can have my right lung. She can have my husband on Tuesdays. Like, whatever it takes.
when there are 9, doesn't have to be all 9 progressives. Should be a mix.
Yeah.
Well, I always say when people ask, there was that West Wing episode, and I cannot remember for the life of me who played which character, but they brought in one of the female Supreme Court justices in the show, obviously, and they wanted to appoint her to Chief Justice, but it was like a mixed Congress, so they knew they had to get the Republicans on board, and so they were thinking about bringing in a very conservative associate to put in. And they put them in the same room, and then they just had the most collegial banter. And it was just like, this is what it is. It should be if you're going to have to go by politics, then you want 4 progressive, 4 conservatives, and an in-between person, because you should be discussing it. You should be figuring out what is the compromise, what is the way to move forward from that, instead of one side pushes all. So, but on that note, I think we should go to take a recess from the court and move on to some fun games.
Yeah, so let's spin the wheel. All right. What is it going to be today?
It's cheaper to keep him. I always want it to be you be the judge. That's my favorite.
Thank you. All right. When Jennifer Lopez divorced her husband, Chris Judd, in 2002, he received higher or lower than $20.5 million. Chris Judd.
Wasn't she married to him for like a hot second?
Like a backup dancer or something.
Well, yeah, wasn't he a dancer
Oh,
or something
okay.
like that? Yeah.
Aren't they saying she and Ben Affleck are on the rocks again?
Yeah.
Oh.
Probably that settlement will be more even.
Probably.
Higher, lower.
In 2000, you said?
2002.
Like, I don't know when J-Lo hit the height of her popularity, but I feel like around that time.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with higher.
That's what I was
I was
leaning
going to say
towards.
lower.
Lower. 14 million.
14 million.
I had like 17 in my head.
Okay.
I guess it wasn't that long of a marriage, so.
Johnny Carson's ex-wife, Joanna Holland, received higher or lower than $19 million from the divorce settlement. No year.
Man, Johnny Carson was like 70s, 80s talk show, right?
I have no idea how much money Johnny Carson would have.
How much
He
did it
had a
say?
lot, $19 million.
I'm going to say inflation probably would make it lower.
I'm going to go with lower.
Higher.
Higher, 20 million.
Oh.
20 million. Oh, okay. Mick Jagger paid higher or lower than $37 million to his ex-wife, Jerry Hall, in their divorce.
They were married for a while.
Yeah, I'm going to go higher.
Me too.
Yeah.
Lower, 25 million.
Oh.
Weren't they married a long time? I don't know. All these things that I want to look up, but I won't do it on camera.
And then we won't remember it later.
Right.
It's time for our childhood traumas.
Yes. Let's hear what the people of Reddit are saying.
Let's see. All right. This is from And Only Mrs. Riley. Have several, but currently thinking of the time a colleague's client wore a sweater to court that said dope on it in different fonts. It was truthfully a nice sweater, and understanding the term as it was intended, no one batted an eye until the elderly judge blew a gasket about wearing a shirt promoting dope use to court, and on the record ensued a lengthy exchange, CLE, between colleagues. Reagan-era judge and client about how dope doesn't mean what you think it means anymore. Respectfully, judge. You've heard about people wearing crazy shirts to court around here. I had a former colleague say somebody showed up for their marijuana case wearing a marijuana shirt, and was it their attorney sending someone from their office out in a hurry to JCPenney to buy like a white dress shirt to cover it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
have a distinct memory of being in the district court, with at that time, newer district court female sitting judge, and seeing someone walking around with a shirt that said, "Get back in the kitchen and make me a sandwich." And I was like,
Oh,
that's not, it's not a good look anytime.
No.
It's really not going to be a good look in that courtroom.
no.
Or their domestic violence clients coming in with wife beaters on and nothing else, which one, don't wear a tank top to court.
Right.
But also, that's what they were called. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Wearing the same clothes that you committed the crime on.
Generally not a good idea.
Not a
Really
good
not a good idea. And also football jerseys. Because, some people have their thing and we don't need either one to clash in court or for the judge to be angry at you for.
It's like I've heard many a sports conversation back in chambers of people of disagreeing teams.
Yes.
Just don't want to risk it.
No, it just. But yeah, CLEs would go although I consider TikTok part of my CLE because there's definitely a lot of Gen Z things that I'm like, I have no idea what they're saying. So I'm trying to parse it out from the context of it.
I had a shirt on Saturday that said dope, but it said unapologetically dope. So
You are.
I did a presentation too. I think it was the Inns of Court, which I used to belong to, pre-children. And we talked about the use of social media and pulled various things we'd had, redacted, but various things clients had posted that had become relevant in cases, somebody burning the King's Dominion season passes in the middle of a divorce case or somebody flashing their money in a criminal defense case. That was kind of a fun presentation to make.
Yeah.
Of course, that would all be ancient today. It's probably 10 years ago.
oh goodness.
Well, that's because so much of it has moved now to a point that's completely ungettable. Facebook, you could take screenshots of, and then there was Snapchat, which disappears. So unless somebody got a screenshot, you're not going to have it anymore. I couldn't even
That
imagine.
foils my plans when I'm trying to snoop on my child. He communicates through Snapchat.
Stop it, Charles. Let your mother speak.
Exactly. How dare you? You don't tell me what's going on. I have to find out. So.
I'm waiting for our kids in the future to have glasses, social media or something. We won't even be able to snoop on just things we can't even determine.
She already says stuff and I'm Googling it. I can tell you the day I was driving home and thankfully I had seen a reel or something the day before, 2 days before, explaining the use of the word Rizz. Because surely I was driving home and heard about how all the third grade boys were rizzing on the third grade girls. And had I not heard that video, I might have pulled over right then. Excuse me. As it was still pretty weird.
Yeah.
But at least I knew what Rizz meant.
Yes. You might not understand everything when you're a judge or even an attorney, but still.
Or a mom.
Exactly. It's important to try and keep up to date with the.
Continue to educate yourself.
Yes.
But hopefully we have enough charisma for you guys to keep coming back and watching us a little bit more. So with that, thank you for turning into this episode of All the Legal Ladies. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe and listen to the audio on your favorite digital streaming platform.
And Rizz doesn't mean what it sounds like it means.
We'll see you next time.